Hello, so I'm here in the Lower Don Valley in Rotherham at Centenary Riverside Nature Park, and I'm going to do a video just going around the nature park, maybe one or two videos, who knows, just to show the kind of landscape and what kind of a site it is, because I've been mentioning a lot lately how at least part of the Loxley Valley former Hepworth site, certainly the bit opposite Wraggs Pond, is very similar to this, and I would like to see it developed very similar to this. It's a very similar site, although obviously in Rotherham here we're in a much more, it's the Lower Don Valley, it's just on the edge of Rotherham town centre, so it is a lot more industrial than the Loxley Valley. Nevertheless, it's at the side of the river and it acts like a floodplain, so you can see it's a multi-agency development, so there's lots of funding coming in from various agencies there. So there is obviously public money available. But so let's go in and have a little look. So we've got the river here, you can see the bridge over the river. So again, you can go on the Sheffield and Rotherham Wildlife Trust site, web page, and there's details about the nature reserve on there. But you've got the River Don here, and it's very wide down here. Obviously the River Loxley isn't as wide as this, but there's lots of pinch points in the River Loxley, and when it rises very, very quickly. So this used to be the site of an old factory, an old steel mill. Let's just stop there and have a little read. So if I kind of hold it there, and then you can press pause if you want to have a read of that. I don't know which way to go. Let's just go over here first. I should probably have done a tour first before starting. See lots of lovely wildflowers here. It's a bit overcast, there's been a bit of rain today, so there's not a lot of bees and butterflies out, but on a warm sunny day, well, there's one down there, well there's quite a few about. But can you imagine on a lovely sunny day, it's going to be covered in bees and butterflies. That over there is a new power station, a new wood burning power station. It's my thought that a lot of Sheffield street trees would have ended up in there if we hadn't have stopped them from chopping them all down, but that's not what this video is about. So you can see how it's landscaped down. So this is the bottom area that's allowed to flood. So if I go down this path, so that we're almost at the level of the river. Now I don't know the engineering that happened to actually make this place as it is, how much work they had to do, whether the landscape just naturally was like this, but I wouldn't imagine so. It looks like that bank of wildflowers that you've just seen is, that looks like it's been kind of scraped out. There's some Himalayan balsam here, but it is good for bees. Bees do like that. Lots of nettles. So you see you got the river there, so it only has to rise. Oh, it's probably 4 or 5 foot below. Yeah. So it only has to rise 4 or 5 foot, and it's got all of this site here to flood into. I think this is 4.5 hectares. Don't know how many acres that is. I'm surprised the amount of Himalayan balsam here. I thought just about eradicated this, because they always seem to be bashing it on the River Don. It does look, it stinks awful, it stinks horrible, but it does look lovely at this time of year. And of course there used to be lots down the Riverland Valley, and what we used to like doing is getting the seed heads. You shouldn't do it. I can't see any because it's probably going to be August, September. And then the spring loaded, so you just squeeze them a little bit and then they burst the seeds all over the place. But probably shouldn't do that anymore, otherwise you get this kind of invasive situation. But regardless of the Himalayan balsam, that doesn't stop it doing its job as a floodplain. And as I said, there is some wildlife value in the respect that the bees do like the flowers, and it provides quite a dense undergrowth. Yeah. In fact, yes, it's just about taken over. And the thing is, it's not the worst invasive plant to get rid of. I know along the River Don they do a lot of what they call balsam bashing, but actually it's relatively, or maybe it's just I've come across some young self-seeded ones, but when I've tried to remove it, it's very easy to pull it out. So I don't know, but as I say, maybe that's just a young one. Maybe once it gets really established like this, then it's much harder to do that. So I'm not sure what's through there. Let's go along here, because there should be a big area of water along here. There we go. So yes, along there and there. This you will see on the photograph. This is that wooden boardwalk. So you can see where this winter this flooded, and obviously brought a lot of silt in onto this path. So maybe a wooden. Oh, I'm not sure if it is actually wood. It might be some composite. You can see lots and lots of willows. They'll take up a lot of water. So yeah, the reeds have kind of taken over, so you do need to be careful as to what you plant. And also you don't really want to plant a lot of trees near the water, because again then that increases the rate at which it will silt up. So we come out. Yeah, it's quite warm now. It was raining earlier on, but it's quite warm and still, so there are quite a few butterflies about. Oh, and what we got there? Looks like I've disturbed some goldfinches, possibly. So if we go up these steps here, so you can imagine all this area, when the river's in flood, is allowed to flood. And then obviously you have a big bank to protect, you know, almost like a seawall at Skeggy or maybe or wherever. So all that area there, all over there, when it floods will be a mass of water. The rest of the time it's a wonderful, wonderful mixture of woodland, wetland and wildflowers. Look at these, absolutely stunning. Absolutely beautiful. So imagine something like this that you come upon as you're walking up the Loxley Valley, and you come to Wraggs Pond. Well, on the other side of Wraggs Pond, as the level drops, you have a bank of something like this on there, just with lots of butterflies and bees and, you know, all sorts of wildlife there. And then, well, here we've got some ponds that are higher, which seem to be not in a particularly good state, and I think this is a bit of a mistake, planting these in such small ponds. Again, I think you need to keep ponds a little bit clear, these small ponds, of anything as invasive as that. But you can imagine how, or maybe this is necessary for newts and toads or whatever, but it looks like it's needs a bit of work doing to again bring some more soil in or something and just landscape round there. But still you can see the wildlife benefits. And then if we look on the other side, we've got the main railway track and tram line to between Sheffield and Rotherham. So that is now protected from flooding by this site, or partly by this site. Obviously these schemes, they don't work on their own, they work in unison with other flood preventative schemes, whether it's blocking all the channels up on the moors, all the drainage channels on the moors to keep a lot of the water up there, whether it's building pocket parks down by the Wicker and in the Cultural Industries Quarter, whether it's, you know, working with Yorkshire Water to drop the levels of the reservoirs when bad weather is forecast. Not one of these can work on its own, not with the amounts of rainfall that it's predicted to, that climate change is predicted to bring over the next few years. But every one of those schemes is important. Every one of those schemes goes to make up a holistic approach to the problem of flooding. Just looks beautiful. And of course you've got a bit of industrial, you know, the steel henge, a bit of artwork on the site. So you could create something similar on the Wraggs site. There's a little bit of artwork in the Loxley Valley. I think I've said on one of my other videos, I do like the idea of preserving the chimney on the main Hepworth site near the water treatment works, the old Marshall site. So I think this is the top end of the site. So Rotherham United's ground, I think there's floodlights over there. I think that's the old ground that is still there. That's not the new ground, that's the old ground, I think. Right, let me just walk back along here, because I think this planting, this wildlife planting, is just lovely. You've got some nettles there, got a little bit of shrubbery. I mean, they have done, if you go onto Sheffield and Rotherham Wildlife Trust site and you go onto Centenary Riverside page and scroll to the bottom, there is PDF files of surveys done about the amount of wildlife on here, because obviously it has to do what it says on the tin. If it's not, then it's a waste of public money. And in a very industrial part of Rotherham, this will be an oasis. But this would also, something like this would also enhance, you know, the present eyesore that is the Wraggs site in the Loxley Valley. Absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to walk to this end here, so I'm back at these ponds. As I say, I'd like to see some work being done here. I mean, it may not be appropriate to use certain species up in the Loxley Valley that, you know, maybe don't have those species. You obviously need to do a proper wildlife, a plant survey, animal survey of what's up there and what would be appropriate for that location if you're wanting to create something like this. And then up here we've got it's slightly drier up here, so you've got, you know, you've not got any willows up here, I don't think. Although it looks like you've got some poplars there, which like it quite wet, so it's probably still quite moist, but not as wet as down there. Let's take a little walk along this path. What we're on? 19 minutes. Still I've got plenty of space on my camera, on my phone, so it should be okay. It's lovely. Ragwort. Your ragwort. Lots of clover. Great for bees. More ragwort. Lovely. This is what we want in the Loxley Valley. Imagine that, coming across that on your walks up Loxley Valley. You've already got the industrial, you know, the kind of the mills there, and the pre-industrial revolution heritage. You've got the trees, you've got the ponds, you've got the beautiful fields and hillsides to the north and to the south, and then you come across something like this, which, yes, there are hay meadows in the Loxley Valley, but there's nothing with this amount of wildflowers in, I don't think. And then that kind of comes to the end of it there. Got some apples here, some roses, some blackberries. Oh, and somebody's painted that blue. That's lovely against that. Oh, butterfly. And paint it all blue would be nice. Those railings. Yeah, lots of apples there, so lovely for birds in winter. Let's take a walk along here. I must admit, I mean, I'm not a fan of of industrial buildings like that, but those cooling towers there, those miniature versions of the Tinsley cooling towers, with the steam coming out like that, I do find that quite fascinating. But is it just me being a sad bastard? Excuse my language, sad bastard. I do find that I could sit and watch that for quite some time. So yeah, there's this kind of bits of dead wood here. Again, you're going to have lots of wildlife going into that, and there'll be all sorts of voles and shrews and mice and all sorts of insects in there. And then you've got your teasels and your thistles, and this is what we want in the Loxley Valley, I think. I'm pretty certain most people would go for something like this. You know, if you look what's there now, nobody wants that. Why would you want that when you've got this? Or 300 houses. Nobody wants that, or very few people want that. In fact, virtually nobody wants that, other than the property developer. This is just so much better for so much, forget the graffiti, but so much more appropriate for that particular site. In fact, it's not just appropriate, it fits it perfectly. It's the perfect site for something like this. I mean, it can't be a carbon copy of this because it's its own kind of landscape, but as I say, this is kind of the blueprint, the template that you might have to adjust to fit the Wraggs site in the Loxley Valley. So yeah, just in case you're wondering, again, well, you can see the new New York Stadium there, Rotherham United's ground. So that way is Rotherham Town Centre. Behind me is Sheffield. And it's if you look over there, it's quite a nice part of Rotherham there. You've got a nice wooded area. Absolutely super. So yeah, be careful what you plant in your ponds, in your wetland area. But if we can if we can get that land, if we can purchase that land and, you know, persuade people to get involved, to create something like this, it's a no-brainer for me. It's just, I'm imagining it in my mind, and I think I've said this something similar on other videos. I get frustrated and disappointed when it doesn't come about, or if it does come about, it takes too long to come about, or not everybody's behind it for whatever reason, whether it's profit or greed or whatever. When something like this would benefit so many people. We talk about mental health. We talk about, you know, improving people's quality of life. It's not all about earning as much money or having as much money as you can and just going out and buying the latest trendy product. It's about quality experiences. And yeah, I think walking up the Loxley Valley for a nice walk, maybe visiting, you know, with your family, something like the Tropical Butterfly House and Falconry Centre on part of the site, but before you get there, you come across a Sheffield Wildlife Trust site, something like this. I mean, that's bound to lift you and bound to get you in the mood for, you know, for all the exciting animals and wildlife offerings in something like a proper wildlife centre. So yeah, scrapyard over there. So I'll leave you with that shot of Steelhenge, I think, on nearly 28 minutes. Let's do it. Let's get it done. Okay, bye for now.